The collapse of the French government for the first time since 1962 marks a watershed moment in the country's history, and its implications are vast and potentially destabilizing. France, as one of Europe's largest and most influential economies, relies on political stability to manage its domestic and international challenges. The fall of the government sends a powerful signal of dysfunction within France's political system, which has traditionally been defined by a strong executive branch and a relatively stable balance of power between the president, the prime minister, and parliament. The sudden breakdown of government stability could lead to a protracted period of political turmoil, social unrest, and economic decline, as France grapples with multiple crises at home and abroad. Politically, the collapse of the government represents a profound crisis for the French political system. The semi-presidential system in France means that both the president and the prime minister share executive powers, and the relationship between them is crucial for maintaining a functional government. When the government falls, it is usually due to a breakdown in this delicate balance, often caused by political gridlock or a failure to form a coalition. If a new government is not quickly established, or if there is no clear consensus on leadership, France could face a period of political paralysis, with vital decisions being postponed or left unresolved. In the meantime, the country would lack the strong, unified leadership necessary to address a host of pressing issues, from economic recovery to national security. One of the most immediate and serious consequences of a government collapse would be the exacerbation of France's economic problems. The country is already grappling with a number of challenges, including sluggish economic growth, rising inflation, and a growing fiscal deficit. The global economic environment is also unfavorable, with the ripple effects of the COVID-19 pandemic still being felt, particularly in sectors like tourism, hospitality, and small businesses. Additionally, the war in Ukraine has caused energy prices to soar, which, combined with inflation, is squeezing French consumers and businesses alike. The collapse of the government could lead to a complete breakdown in economic governance, with a lack of clear policy direction preventing France from responding effectively to these crises. Without a stable government, France would struggle to implement economic reforms or respond to emergencies. For instance, energy policy would become a contentious issue, as France, like much of Europe, faces growing pressure to reduce its reliance on Russian energy exports while managing energy costs for consumers. Public spending, social welfare, and tax policies, already contentious, would become even more difficult to address in the absence of a unified government. With no clear leadership, France might face a severe credit downgrade, which could push borrowing costs higher and make it even more difficult for the government to finance its debt. The lack of investor confidence could also lead to capital flight, as businesses and foreign investors seek safer markets, further damaging the economy. Additionally, consumer confidence would likely plummet, resulting in a drop in spending and investment, which could lead to a sharp slowdown in economic activity. Socially, the fall of the French government could trigger widespread unrest and protests. France has a history of political protests, with recent examples including the Yellow Vest movement, which was fueled by anger over economic inequality, high living costs, and perceived government elitism. In the context of a government collapse, these grievances would likely intensify. French citizens, already burdened by rising prices and stagnant wages, could see the collapse as a sign of political failure and an inability to address their concerns. Strikes, street demonstrations, and even violent clashes with police could become more frequent, further destabilizing the country. The risk of social unrest would be compounded by the fact that the government's fall could empower extremist factions, both on the far right and far left, which have been gaining traction in recent years. Such movements thrive in periods of political instability and could further deepen the divide within French society, polarizing the nation and undermining efforts to restore stability. The breakdown of the government could also have serious implications for France's international standing, particularly within the European Union. France has long been one of the driving forces behind European integration, with a central role in shaping EU policies on issues like trade, defense, and climate change. A government collapse would undermine France's ability to participate in key EU decision-making, particularly in the context of ongoing crises such as the war in Ukraine, migration challenges, and the EU's response to economic slowdowns. France's leadership in EU defense and foreign policy could be compromised, leaving a leadership vacuum in the European Union at a time when unity and strong leadership are crucial to dealing with external threats and internal challenges. Furthermore, a political crisis in France could encourage other EU nations to question the stability of the bloc, potentially fueling Eurosceptic movements and undermining European cohesion. On the global stage, France's credibility as a key member of NATO and a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council could be damaged. The French government is a vital player in shaping international responses to global crises, and its inability to function could weaken France's voice in international diplomacy. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine, for instance, requires coordinated action among Western allies, and a France that is politically unstable may not be able to contribute effectively to diplomatic efforts, sanctions, or military support. This could further weaken the Western alliance and embolden adversaries such as Russia and China, who may view France's political turmoil as an opportunity to advance their own geopolitical interests. In the longer term, the collapse of the French government could lead to a fundamental realignment of the country's political landscape. A failure to quickly form a new government could lead to early elections, which might result in a fragmented parliament and an even more polarized political environment. France's political parties, already divided, could face challenges in forming workable coalitions, leading to continued instability and governance challenges. Populist or extremist parties, both on the left and the right, could gain strength, further eroding the political center and making it even harder to reach consensus on key issues. In such an environment, France might struggle to enact the reforms necessary to address its long-term structural problems, from pension reform to labor market flexibility, education, and healthcare. Ultimately, the downfall of the French government could lead to a perfect storm of political instability, economic decline, and social unrest. The consequences for France could be profound, and the ripple effects would likely be felt across Europe and the broader international community. France's future would depend on its ability to quickly restore order, rebuild trust in its political institutions, and find a path toward stability amidst a rapidly changing and volatile global environment. If the government's collapse is not quickly addressed, the country could face years of uncertainty and struggle to regain its position as a key global power.